For 15 years, Citybird has been where you can find Detroit's best gifts, cards, and local goods. And now that you've made your list and are checking it twice, you'll find something nice for everyone at Citybird. Unique, thoughtful, and local, Citybird has it all. There's special gear celebrating the Lions you can't find anywhere else. Mugs, they're witty, they're fun, and I have far more than one. Back our classic engraved neighborhood rocks glasses with your choice of 60 Detroit neighborhoods for a touch of elegance. Citybird also offers a curated selection of jewelry, candles, home goods, and apparel by hundreds of local and independent makers. Here's a pro tip. When I go to their shop on West Canfield, I head straight to the wall on the left and make sure I pick up some of the most unique, thoughtful, and humorous cards I've ever seen. And if you get a card from me, you can bet it's a card bought at Citybird. I found that for any occasion, they will add that extra bit of joy, whether it's a note to say thanks or paired with a present. Visit Citybird today and make new memories. For you, visiting their store in Midtown, and for everyone on your list. Located in Detroit at 460 West Canfield between Cass and 2nd Avenues, or online at citybird.detroit.com. That's citybird.detroit.com. Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Monday, December 23rd, 2024. We are almost out of 2024. I am J.R. Stays, and joining me to help talk about the Lions today, because it was a great victory for our squad, is Fletcher Sharpe. How are you?
Yeah, it was a great game for the Lions. They played really well, and honestly, beating the Chicago Bears twice in this season, whether they're having a great year or not, is always a benchmark.
Those rivalry games really make people have to step up, but I'll tell you, it seems like the Lions kind of rolled right over Chicago, even bringing out a trick play that's gotten a lot of people talking.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the Bears are kind of hapless. Their season was definitely over, especially after Thanksgiving, where former coach inexplicably just let the clock run. But that does not take away from the fact that the Lions played a complete game. They dominated on offense, defense, and special teams, which is what you have to do in games against opponents that are not great, even if they are division rivals, because those are the ones. I'm sure people who watch Michigan State have seen times where one side has been weaker, but the game gets tight because those people really don't like each other. But yeah, the trick play they brought out, I know Ben Johnson asked Jared Goff earlier in the week if he could bounce the ball, like to fake a fumble, and he was like, no. They tried it once and he's like, yeah, I can't do that. So they decided instead to fakely drop the ball, which I think is kind of funny given that all the Packers fans freaked out about Goff's knee being down to hand the ball off, which means they don't know what the rules are. But yeah, they had a fake play where they faked that they dropped the ball. The entire Lions defense, the entire Lions sideline yelled ball as if the ball had been dropped. Jahmyr Gibbs dove as if there was a ball on the ground, and Mr. Simone Biles, Jonathan Owens, was too busy looking in the backfield to not see Sam Laporta sneak right behind him, as Goff then turned around and lobbed a perfect ball over him to Laporta into the end zone. So yeah, I mean, they're still gonna get those trick plays, and I'm typically someone who is like, trick plays are something you pull out when you think you're gonna get blown out. Like, typically you see trick plays happen when it's like, oh, we need to do something to throw this team off, because otherwise they might come down and just maul us. But Ben Johnson's found a way to incorporate trick plays into like the actual playbook, where it's not just, we're doing them because we're trying to, get an upset. It's like, we're going to win, and also here's our left tackle getting a touchdown reception. Here's our running back throwing a ball to the quarterback. Here's our defensive tackle getting a carry up the middle. And like, it's honestly refreshing to see, especially in professional football, because they're paying you money to do this. It's not like you're doing it for the love of the game. Like, this is your paid profession, and you're out there playing as if you're a 14, 13-year-old. And that, I'm sure that's probably really enjoyable in the locker room.
I was glad to see that Jahmyr Gibbs stepped up.
I mean, yeah, he was going to have to with Dave Montgomery gone for most of the season. There's a chance he might come back later, but even still, an MCL makes it hard for you to cut. He's not going to be the same guy he was this year. Next year for sure, but this year it's going to be a little bit rougher. But I mean, people might have forgotten, but Jahmyr Gibbs was the feature back at Alabama and at Georgia Tech, And like he was really good at both those schools, like really, really good. I mean, he had a really good offensive line with Alabama, but like he can run between the tackles. He just prefers to get to the outside, but he can definitely be a guy who carries the ball 25 times if need be and be okay, especially if it's going to be at the short end of a season. All 18 games, I'm not really sure, but like the second half plus some playoff games, yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs can handle that. So to see him have a game where he goes for 150 plus total yards and a touchdown is great, especially the one where he dove up the middle to get the touchdown. Lets you know that, while he is a speed guy, he's got a little bruising force too.
The 34-17 win definitely feels good, but let's talk about the bigger picture. We've got a couple of games coming up. We've got other teams they're doing what they're doing. How are we feeling? Because there was in sports media, there was kind of a doom loop this week with a lot of people. And I wanted to get your honest feelings about it and where we're at with everything.
Aaron Glenn summed it up perfectly. He was like, people are saying the sky is falling and we're 12-2. Like, how is the sky falling when we're still the number one team in the East? Like, how is the sky falling? He's like, you guys, that's for you guys, pointing to the media people. He's like, we're just here to play football. That's what our job is. And yeah, I mean, there are some people who are like, oh man, some people really thought they were going to win all the way out. And I understand that, being part of a fan, like you get kind of swept up in it. But like, even after losing, that's part of the perk of being one of the better teams in your division, one of your better teams in your conference. You can lose a game and you're still near the top. Like, even after losing that game last week, they were still tied for the division lead. And like, they still are tied for the division lead, and they have a tiebreaker. And even better, the Eagles lost to the Commanders on a last second play by Jaden Daniels, who I think might be rookie of the year. And like, now they're number one in the East. Like, they are number one. They have the number one record in the East. I know they're tied with the Vikings, but the Vikings have lost to the Lions, so that by tiebreaker puts them underneath. So the Lions are the number one team in the NFC. So like, yeah, while the sky is falling, like, they also have the most wins in franchise history, scored the most points in a season in franchise history, and they still have a few more games left. So like, if this is the sky falling, I really wonder what it looks like when stuff's going great.
If you're going to win a Super Bowl, it's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy.
I mean, no, it's not. And for the Lions, it's going to be especially hard given the fact that they have so many people on injured reserve, so many key players on injured reserve. I know there is one Eagles fan who was complaining because the Commanders beat the Eagles yesterday, and it's because their starting quarterback Jalen Hurts went out after the first quarter, and it was like, oh well, they're talking like the Commanders beat a fully healthy Eagles team, and all this other stuff, and we were missing our quarterback. And I was like, that's a very fair point, but they wanted to give Josh Allen the MVP after he beat a Lions defense made up of mainly people that got off the street. And she's like, well, that's different. I'm like, not really. Not really. It's the same thing. If it's different, it's because it's much more worse for the Lions. But like, if you're going to support a sports team, you're going to support an organization, you have to understand, like, sometimes that's going to happen. Some days it's just not going to be your day. And fortunately for the Lions, unfortunately for Eagles, it was the Lions' day and not the Eagles' day. And yeah, there's just kind of the nature of the beast in sports, especially a sport as violent as football is. Sometimes you're going to have injuries. And as I've said in the past a few times, almost every year one team gets the injury bug. Like, maybe not as much as this, but on one team gets like, hey, this year you're going to have some people who just get hurt. Like, that's just... Maybe you get the injury bug and it's mainly your practice players, but like one team's going to have a team where it's like your starters are going to be out. Like, your starters are going to you're not going to have this guy for X amount of time, and you have to just be okay with it and managing. And honestly, that just shows the depth that they built with this roster. Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Sheila Hempford, like, they helped assemble a roster that's deep, albeit they're scratching the bottom of that deepness, but like still deep enough to contribute and work at a rate that is keeping them at 13-2.
We're going to talk about the 49ers in a minute, but I feel like we're headed towards a final showdown, that final game of the year against the Vikings.
I mean, yeah, the Vikings have to get by the Packers. They beat the Seahawks, which I did not think they would do. Geno Smith came back. He's having a great year, a great kind of career with the Seahawks after the way his career started with the Jets. The Jets tend to do that to their quarterbacks. Watching Geno Smith and Sam Darnold kind of flourish outside of New York is honestly a little unsettling. And seeing Aaron Rodgers go there and just completely crap the bed is unsettling, but like in a good way. But if the Vikings get past the Packers and the Lions get past the 49ers, they will both finish at 14-2, and then it'll be a very big, important game at Ford Field that I'm sure everyone will be watching. I think the Lions will have a much easier time with the 49ers than say the Vikings will with the Packers. Just from the standpoint that the 49ers, while they are playing for pride, they are missing so many important pieces. Christian McCaffrey, for one, who's one of the more dynamic players in the league, he's out. Their defense is beset by injury. They're also dealing with controversy. They had a player who they are going to cut. I don't know if they cut him yet, who refused to go into a game because someone else came back off injury and other players were getting hurt, and he just walked off the field during the third and fourth quarter, just walked into the locker room, and it unsettled a lot of their players. They still have the pieces, some of the pieces from last year that got them to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy's still there. I think he's an ultimate game manager, but I think if you give him some time, he can do the right thing. I just don't think he's as good as, maybe last year. The receiver / running back / do-it-all guy, Deebo Samuel, still a dynamic player who you do not want to let get into open field, but he's been having some drops this year. He's been not playing up to his potential. These are the type of games, the trap games, where if you look past them, you can have a guy who's maybe had 30 fumbles this year. You look past them, this will be the game he goes off for 200 yards and a few touchdowns. So I don't think Dan Campbell's going to let the team look past the 49ers at all. But I think the Lions should be okay. Like, I think this is a game that I won't say comfortably win, but I think at the end it gets a little bit tighter. But I think they win this game by maybe, 7 to 10 points.
Really? Right now the betting line is 3.5 points.
Well, that's because the Lions' defense is banged up. And they also think Brock Purdy's Brock Purdy from last year. I'm seeing something like 31-21, 31-24, something like that. The defense is a little worrisome, but like I have faith the defense will hold against this 49ers offense, which really is not producing so well right now.
Fletcher Sharpe, it's been such an honor over the last year to be talking with you about all kinds of topics, and also, honestly, the Lions, because who knew, like 3 years ago, whenever you started like being on the air with us, that the Lions were going to be like front and center. It was the only thing that people really wanted to talk about. This town has just become Dan Campbell crazy. And honestly, I know that like other sports deserve their shine, but to see Metro Detroiters, whether we live in the region or live afar, rally behind the Honolulu Blue has been a magical thing that I hadn't seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. I mean, like, the Red Wings, when they were good, like, people really cared about the Red Wings for sure, and they still care about the Red Wings. Don't get me wrong. When the Pistons won their title, like, people were like, going to work, Pistons, I love the Pistons, everything. But like when Jim Caldwell brought the Pistons back to, but when Jim Caldwell brought the Lions back to like having like a winning record after like the Marty Mornhinweg, Jim Schwartz era, people were like, okay, like I'm invested now. Like, all right, the Lions or whatever. And now while they have not, won a playoff game, while they have not done whatever, they're back in the playoffs. They're a good team. Then they brought in Matt Patricia, who like strangled the life and love out of most Lions fans. Like he came in with his old, I'm going to be the Belichick right way. And it's like, bro, that doesn't work if you're not Bill Belichick, because people have to respect you. And no one respects you. No one in this building respects you. A lot of Lions fans are pretty low. And when they then signed the antithesis of him, when Dan Campbell, I'll admit, I've been very quick to admit this and eat crow as much as I can. I was like, you just signed a happy Matt Patricia. That's it. You signed a guy who wants to come there and be hyped up. I'll never forget what I said. He's hyped up because he knows his first season is going to be very bad. And if he's very positive about it, they'll give him more years. Because instead of coming in and being morose, like, oh, we suck. But he's like, we're going to bite kneecaps. We're going to punch people in the face. We're going to drink their blood. Okay. If he's hype about it, people get hype about it and they'll want to do stuff. After the first year, a little rough. But then the second year it started to turn around, and it's like you and I spoke about it off air at the end of last or end of the year before, where it's like, man, like there's something here. Like people are starting to believe in this team. Team didn't make the playoffs. They finished above 500. They did not make the playoffs, but people were like, watch out for the Lions. And I was like, well, we'll see. We will see. I don't know. I've been there before. I've been watch out for the Lions many, many times, and we watch out as they crater the following year horrifically. But no, he's really elevated this team to the point where people want to come to Detroit. And not to say that Detroit's not a great place. I love the city. You love the city. People listening love the city. But like, it's cold in the winter, man. Like no one loves this weather. And people free agents were like, it's November, October. I want to go to the Motor City and play football. I don't care if it's freezing. I don't care if it's -2 degrees walking around. I want to go play for this organization. And to see that, to me, that's the crazy part Detroit is a big city. It's a lovely city, but it's a cold city. It's not Los Angeles. Doesn't have the allure that New York has where it's like, we're New York, get over here, like whatever, but like, it's not Florida with all the heat, but like people want to come here. People want to come here and do stuff. He's got fans traveling to take over stadiums the past 2 years. And this year it's been really majestic because they're undefeated on the road so far. So you got a bunch of Honolulu Blue Lions fans coming in your stadium, cheering for Jared Goff over your own players and watching that team dismantle your team. It's like you said, in my lifetime, I've seen the Lions be good. I haven't seen them be like Lloyd Carr, like early Michigan good. Like I've not seen like this where it's like, oh man, you guys are in for a long Sunday type thing. Like I've never been able to say that before a game started and like fully know that it's about to happen. So like seeing the transformation now is like, it's nuts. It's like night and day. And I don't want to say that I love it, but like kind of do.
Let the Grinch out. Open up your heart.
Kind of do, man. I mean, I wouldn't call it a Grinch. I'd maybe say it's being pragmatic, but yeah, sure. Two sides of the same coin.
You know who else I love to see the success of is Jared Goff, because everybody discounted him. A lot of people thought that Jared couldn't do it. There's still people who are like, oh, he's not I don't know what this guy needs to do to prove to you other than a Super Bowl. And I still believe in the power of the Lions, but this guy's for real. And he's a different energy than Matt Stafford was. He's a different energy than I think a lot of people anticipated, but I think he's the hero we needed.
I mean, yeah, when the Rams traded him for Stafford, they're like, it's kind of like the Lion King, where it's like, we're going to send you to the place where the light doesn't hit. You're going to the shadow world. You're going over here. You're going to hang out, with the dregs in this city. We're going to take this guy back to Hollywood. And you typically don't really see teams who have a quarterback who took him to the Super Bowl, like at least 2 years before. You don't see them kind of bail on a guy like that. And it was kind of the most alarming thing was this guy got you to a Super Bowl. Yes, was he the most important player? No, that was Todd Gurley, the rest of your team, and your defense. But like he got you to a Super Bowl, and a young guy, you're gonna bail on him already. Like that's kind of wild. So yeah, he come to Detroit. He had some baggage. He had some damage. People were kind of like, well, if they don't want him and they went and won a Super Bowl literally the year they got rid of him, should we want him? Like he's not very mobile. He doesn't have a huge arm. He makes some pretty obvious mistakes. Like, do we want this guy? And he came in and he has embraced the city. He's embraced the culture to the point to where I don't remember ever hearing Matt Stafford chants at other sporting events. I don't remember hearing Matt Stafford chants at recreational soccer games. I don't remember hearing Matt Stafford chants while walking around local cities. But like you go places, there's like a 1 in 8 chance they might just start chanting Jared Goff just because. And like that, whoever doubts this man now, like something's not right at home, and maybe you just need a hug or something. I'm not really sure what what's going on. But like, he's shown that he wants to be here. He's shown he's one of the better quarterbacks in this league, at least this season, the past season as well. And like, he's earned that respect. Now, you want to talk about next year, the year following? Sure. When that comes, for sure. But right now, in terms of quarterbacks in this league, he's got to be in your top 7, top 8 in the league. He has to be. If he's not, like, that's just you have an agenda, and that's totally fine. But like, no one needs to hear your opinion much longer.
Well, Fletcher Sharpe, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much to our listeners for sticking with us all of these nearly 1,600 episodes we've been doing this. With that, I'm J.R. Stays.
I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Remember that you are somebody. Have a wonderful holidays. Have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. And we will talk next week.